here. I saw one deer walk in front of me, but it was deep back in the cut, and I couldn't tell if it was a buck or a doe. Probably a doe. I mean, I could probably, if it really stood up, I could really tell, but I didn't. That's the only deer that I saw so far. It's almost 7:30. I think I heard some turkeys right before sunrise. They might have been coming out of the roost. But he didn't show up. And I'll throw the picture up here. I don't know, he might be an evening sit at this point. I think the does are moving back and forth from the ag fields in the morning. And I think he's coming in here at night. He might even be breeding does that haven't been bred yet. There's a little bit of light snow coming through here, but I think that's what he might be doing at night. You know, the does are coming back in the morning from the ag fields, then at night he's coming back from them. But there's not a whole lot of stuff left. About a quarter of a mile down the road, they cut that down 2 days ago. So there's whatever they dropped after cutting the field, that's what's left there. And if these does find that, it's over with, because it's survival of the fittest right now. And this is the first little bit of snow flurries that we've had in quite some time. Yesterday it was about 16 degrees, but it was pretty windy. And then it's supposed to shoot back up into the 50s here coming up. So I don't know how that's going to work out. I did go to the corner of the lot, and they have eaten all the food plot there. And I think that's one of the reasons why he might have cruised that direction, and why I only got those pictures. He cruised the food plot, figured out that there's nothing left because the does and the yearlings have been in there, and he probably cruised down, cut back over to wherever he's going. Or he could have just been cruising through, you know, not worried about nothing, and he might not stay around. But it's a pretty tough morning, to say the least. Pretty tough morning. Seems like around 6 o'clock it was not too bad, but as the day's going on, it's almost 7:30, 8 o'clock now, that you know, it's getting colder. I mean, even the snow's falling a little bit. So I think I'm gonna do an evening set. I don't want to burn this out sitting here just messing around. You know, let the does go bed, and then when I do what I have to do today, I think I'm gonna come back and sit in the evening and see if I can catch him coming back in right before dusk. I think that's his path he's gonna be on. I did have a spike on the camera coming through the same spot a couple hours after he did, so I don't know if that spike's gonna stick around with him in the area. Those two, that's a mismatch right there if they get some kind of conflict of interest going on. But we'll have to see in the late afternoon what we're gonna do here. There's a squirrel over there making noise. I had one on the side of the blind. I thought there was a deer that was gonna walk on the side of the blind, but it wasn't. A stupid squirrel. So nothing we'll have to see coming up here in the late afternoon. So catch you then. So this is going to be like a 3-part video. Roll call 219 here, and the video you just saw, that was in the morning. That's kind of how my morning hunts have been going here lately, and now I'm starting to see deer shift. Now I'm going to throw these pictures up here. This is a guy that's been hovering around for the last few days. I seen him on the camera the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th, and I just came in from outside, and I seen a deer walk across the yard, and there was antlers on him. So unfortunately, he's getting kind of vampire-ish, turning nocturnal on me. That's not good. And he didn't notice me because he didn't blow, he didn't do anything. He just moseyed on, and I can hear him back there. And I'm getting real good at distinguishing, some of the sounds that these deer are making. Usually the does will start blowing, they'll get a little bit nervous. This guy, he just moseyed around. He kind of looked up a little bit. That's how I was like, oh man, he's got antlers. And he just moseyed on into the woods. So unfortunately, he's only doing this at night, and I haven't caught him in the early portions of the morning. I've been sitting in my blind about 5:30 ish, and sunrise nowadays isn't until 7 o'clock. So I only have a little bit of a 30-minute time frame from the time sun rises to sunset. Unfortunately, the other day, why I'm making this video is I didn't have any opportunity to do an afternoon hunt. They were doing some work. They're cutting trees down. If you looked at the last video, that's a whole nother thing. So there was a lot of noise. There's a lot of action that was going on, and they're probably not going to want any part of that, and it's probably going to scare them off from coming out and doing their deer stuff. But I've really noticed this guy showing up on the property. Unfortunately, he is really sticking to the 4:30 midnight hours, and he's traveling around. It's like almost 11:30, 12 o'clock. So and I seen him, and I heard him walk through the woods. So he's on this schedule. Whether he slips up or not, if you're not familiar with hunting or you're starting out, you have your post rut where you see a lot of the chasing, especially the younger bucks and button bucks are doing that. Then you get into the rut itself, and now we're on the tail end of it. We're on the post rut, almost the second rut in some people's areas. But I've kind of looked at the deer in the area that I'm in, and it's almost like survival mode. It's not so much breeding anymore. You don't see the chasing as much, or if all. These guys are really looking for food, especially those big mature bucks. They're looking to pack on the pounds for the winter stretch here that should be coming up here either at the end of December, especially the beginning of January, when hopefully the snow starts to set in here. And we don't, fall into some kind of Indian summer, because I will tell you, here in the next week or so, we're going to creep back up into the 50-55 degree range, and that's no good. They're not going to be wanting to move as much, when it gets really hot out or really warm. Right now, the only advantage I have is the cold. The cold, they're not going to be sitting around. They're not going to be laying around. But yet, if the weather doesn't work with me in that kind of aspect where, the last few days it's been warm, but it's been rainy, and then I have 20-mile-an-hour winds all around me, that's a tough hunt. That's a tough hunt. It's doable, but it's a tough hunt because you're really going to have to put your scent in check, and you're really going to have to, kind of trick these guys if they're sitting on the back end of this rut. I mean, they have a pretty big rack for a reason. That's because they're old and they're wise, and they figured out the game that we're all playing here. So that's something to keep in perspective, because during the rut, this is where these guys are shooting these bucks. They're shooting some big deer is because their instincts are taking over, and they're in the breeding mode. Now they're in the foraging mode. They want to start packing on the pounds that they're losing
from breeding does. So it's a little bit more trickier. They're not going to be as much of, I call them risk takers. They're not going to be taking these risks of coming out in the daytime or sitting wide open in an ag field. Now they're going to be going back into that mode where they're going to be skimming, like this guy tonight. He's skimming around the tree lines. You know what I'm saying? He's at night. It's not in the very early mornings, or even late in the afternoons for the afternoon hunts. He's coming out. I call them vampires. He's vamping out here, and I don't quite think it's so much pressure hunting, but they did cut the rest of the fields around my area are all harvested. They're all plowed. Whatever critters are getting it, whether it's the birds, the squirrels, or the turkeys that have been kind of getting ramped up here in the last few days, they're all picking what's ever left over from what the farmers have already harvested. And my food plot, it wasn't huge, it wasn't giant, but it's dwindled to nothing. There was one small little patch left of it. I looked at it on my way to work this morning, and there's nothing left. So that's why I kind of made a food plot, because I live by a bunch of ag fields and a bunch of corn fields. So, food's abundant during pre and the rut itself. So there's always an opportunity to catch a quick meal for these guys. Now the times that we're in now, there's nothing left. Food is starting to get sparse. But again, the weather's going to take another drastic turn and start to warm up. So weather that hopefully gives me a little bit more time on my food plot, or something of that nature. It will only tell, because we're supposed to get some 55 degree days here in the next week or so. That'd be detrimental for deer movement, because deer don't like to move when it's all warm and hot out. They like to lay back and wait for those cooler temperatures. When the front comes through, we're going to get rain. We're going to get rain and wind. Up north, they're going to get snow and wind. So they're going to have a little bit of a better shot here coming down the last portion of hunting season to harvest something, because when it's really cold out, they have to move. They have to continuously get that blood pumping through them. So that will lead them to look for water. Whatever you're hunting doe or you're hunting the bucks, they're going to have to find something in that cooler weather pattern. But unfortunately, this next weather pattern, it's just going to be nothing but rain, and it's going to be nothing but a little bit of a shocker, and have some higher temperatures on the back side of it. So this one's going to be a little bit tougher coming down to the stretch. I would really love to tag out. Now, I've already taken 2 deer because I harvest these deer earlier in the season and had that opportunity, because the last few years haven't been kind to me. So I'm not in that pressure mode of meat, like a meat crisis. I'm not in that mode yet because I've already harvested some deer. Now I'm getting a little bit picky. Now I'm starting to look for that buck. That one wall hanger would be nice to cap off my season this year. It'd be really stellar, just like a couple years previously where I only shot 1 deer and it was a buck. But it was a decent sized buck. Getting something is better than not getting anything. I've eaten tag stew quite a few times. So hopefully coming up here, this guy will slip up. And I'll put some pictures up here to refresh your memory, because I'm going to tell you, this is a really nice animal. This is something that I'd really like to put on my wall, and plus pack out the freezer for the rest of the time of the winter. That's another thing I've really noticed. When I know the weather's going to really get bad, I look at the squirrels. Everybody hates the squirrels, especially deer hunters, because they, when the leaves fall and they're crashing around the leaves, you might think it's that target animal that you're looking for, but it's nothing but a squirrel. But the squirrels really haven't been in dire mode to collect the acorns that are falling or that are left at this point, or kind of rummaging around. They've kind of just been normal. It doesn't seem to be a crisis mode for those guys yet. So I've really looked at them, especially some birds. You know, usually some birds aren't around a whole lot in the winter than others, and those birds are still here. You know, they haven't quite gone into that mode of coming out just looking for something. They're flying around. They're having a good old time. So that's stuff that I kind of keep an eye on. The weatherman's only good for so long. And I don't pay for those apps on your phone. I don't do that. I don't have the money to do that. So I'm kind of looking at nature, kind of taking a little spurts from weather or some other people that are hunters, talking to them. That's really where I get my information, especially talking to other hunters, because that's pretty concrete, especially those guys that have been hunting for quite some time, and kind of draining them of a little bit of their knowledge and putting it in my bank. So hopefully here in the next few weeks, this guy slips up, or another deer will slip up and you know, fall into that phase of the second rut. Again, we were coming out on the porch one day, man, and it just smelled like doe estrus. It was really rank. And driving down the road a couple of days ago, I noticed it on my way to work. So there's some deer that are in the area that are getting there, whether it's, you know, the yearlings or the 2-year-olds that are coming into their estrus cycles. You know, that might spur some other deer that haven't had their cycle of estrus to kind of get on board. Will that throw this guy into that mentality of breeding again? I don't know. It all depends how worn out he is and how much, you know, he's going to look for food. I think he's probably going to take the latter, you know what I'm saying, and go check out those girls he's probably going to be tracking here, hopefully, and he'll fall back into that mentality where he slips up. So it's only time will tell now. My son's going to be coming over. We're going to go and have a sit tomorrow afternoon, and then probably this weekend we'll sit around and see what goes on and kind of keep an eye on it. But that's the status now. There's really a bad timing here with people doing work on the roads and stuff. The deer don't quite like that, and they'll probably steer clear of the area. But again, I've just seen a deer come through, and I got deer on my trail camera, but unfortunately it's at night. So I gotta, hopefully this weather pattern might break his cycle, and make it a little bit more feasible for him to come out in the mornings instead of just, you know, late evenings, or, you know, being nocturnal like that. Again, I've heard a couple of shots on the previous video that morning. Muzzleloader season's going on. Unfortunately, with muzzleloading season, if you didn't stock up throughout the last few years on your primers, your bullets, and your hot shot, or whatever kind of stuff you use, that's not readily available. It's just not. My store doesn't have any. My local gun shop doesn't. And I heard a couple places like Bass Pro, they don't have a ton of reloading stuff in my location. I don't know how your location is for those types of stores or your local stores. But here it's been really dicey. If you're gonna hunt muzzleloader, it's your best bet to try and find it off the internet and get it shipped ASAP to your house, because here in my area there's not a whole lot of muzzleloader stuff going through. Again, it's like the 9mm crisis and all the ammo crisis. You know, the guns are somewhat available now, but the ammo's not. You know, we're in that phase here in my area with muzzle loading. That's why it's always good to stock up on this stuff when, you know, the world doesn't go into a panic, you know, and start prepping for that. I've noticed that a lot, especially at my job, where people are scrambling to find these components to do muzzleloader this year. I don't do it. I do gun and bow, so I don't really have a forte in it. I don't know much about it. I hear it's pretty simple for the most part, but for the deer, it's gonna be a little bit of a more challenge here to tag out towards the end of December. We're coming upon it. Plus, we got holidays. I'm gonna have to go and do Christmas stuff, and we got birthdays that have arrived, like my kid's birthday, and then we're going to have a couple of other people down the road here. They're going to have a birthday. So we got a lot of stuff to do. So I got to fit this into a tight window for hunting. So that's the status. Didn't get out there in the afternoon hunt. But again, I don't think those deer were pretty thrilled with all the work that was being done just in the immediate area, because it was loud. You know, with what he was doing, cars were getting backed up to get around him, and you know, there's a lot of stuff like that happening. So the last few days haven't been, you know, great for the afternoon hunting situation. So we'll have to see what transpires here in the next few days. We'll have to watch. I'll have to watch this weather. You watch it as well in your area, and take note of this weather pattern that's coming through. I'd like to thank my old and my new subscribers, and just the people that zip through. I greatly do appreciate it. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Use that comment section, and like always, guys, we'll catch you on the next one.